Welcome back to the Castaway Consultants, where we teach future Survivor players how to play the game by criticizing current players. Today, we're looking at Survivor 46, Episode Several. I'm your co-host, Josh Wessler, joined today by Ryan Stacy and Derek Kubicek.
How great was that Jelinski shout out in the episode? Jeff gave Jelinski a shout out in the middle of the episode, and they named the episode title after him, Survivor Legend Jelinski. I love it.
He'll live forever now.
Yep.
Right in the episode titles.
I almost hope that it is always episode several from here on. Because first boot, Jelinski said several means seven. Several means seven.
Well, if we can try to remember and do it in future seasons, if Survivor does not.
Well, before we jump into episode several, Derek.
Yes, as always, if anyone on Apple Podcasts or any other place where you can leave reviews, I believe the most popular is Apple Podcasts. We'll read it if it's good and it's positive.
And 5 stars.
Because we appreciate it. And we got a 5-star review from DSK. Not sure how to pronounce it. I'm butchering it, but the review goes, immaculate back catalog. This podcast has such fantastic takes on Survivor that make it a fun and engaging listen. They have long sessions, which I appreciate because it helps with truly diving into why I enjoy Survivor, and you can tell their passion. Thank you for that. Thank you. Their supersized episodes where they dive into the pre and post merge are some of my favorites. Well, they are some of our favorites as well. So thank you for that review.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the feedback. This is why we do it. Anyone else, go out, leave it. But back to your regularly scheduled episode.
Well, on that note, the long sessions, I especially really appreciate that you mentioned that because, fun fact, when we were first starting this podcast, when we were talking about doing the old, the rewinds, Derek thought each half, the pre-merge and the post-merge, should be about half an hour each.
So ridiculous.
Wow. So, okay. We're pulling back the curtain for a second here. And why not? When we, almost 5 years ago,
good God,
started putting out episodes for the first time, and we had 0 listeners. We were trying to figure out what we wanted the podcast to be. And at the time, I was thinking to myself, I don't want to keep the people for too long. And Ryan was saying there's plenty of time to do half an hour episodes or close to it when we're doing our current seasons. But when we're doing the rewinds, that's already old content. People who are listening to that are going to want the deep dive. So Ryan was 100% right on that, but I want to say I did not drill down too deeply on this. We were workshopping, and Ryan is yeeting me right under the bus.
And famously, Derek is the one that usually makes the episodes longer and longer and longer, which is good.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing. But I felt the need to throw Derek under the bus, as I usually do. Since we're throwing back the curtain, should we tell the listeners what our original working title Survivor name was?
You know what? We may as well. It came up earlier today anyway. So before the podcast, pre-podcast, we had a group chat where we would talk about Survivor anyway. And at some point in time, we renamed that chat Stupid Sexy Survivor. This is obviously a reference to the Stupid Sexy Flanders meme from The Simpsons. Mm-hmm. But obviously you have the alliteration.
Yep.
That was the working title of the podcast.
And Josh and I were super okay with it. And Derek was like, no, we could do better than that. Yeah, this is almost Stupid Sexy Survivor.
And you know what? If you guys want to call it the Stupid Sexy Survivor podcast, I'm okay with it. But
it is still our group chat name to this day.
To this day, it still is.
It still is. I wouldn't change it. But I like that this one's a little safer for work. I'm glad that we landed where we did.
It's crisper. I like it.
If we ever want to do an After Dark version, we can be the Stupid Sexy Survivor podcast.
There you go. That's for after we finish all of our rewinds and we're doing some crazy rankings from the show.
And after Total Drama Island and after the international versions of Survivor, then Survivor After Dark.
Yes.
No idea what this will involve.
It'll be stupid and it'll be sexy.
Damn right.
Where are we?
We're on episode several. So
I already told you that. Don't you remember?
Our merge episode, where once again we don't really do a merge boot, but hey, it was still a really fun episode. This was a good one tonight, I thought.
Yeah, it was fun. As much as I don't like this structure, and we've been down this each of the last couple of seasons with having this right on the back of the mergatory, it's still entertaining. As far as game mechanics go, I don't think it's the most fair, I would say, to players, but as a viewer, it is absolutely entertaining.
I'd say do it at the final 10 or 11. And you can have an uneven group. We've seen that before. I just want one episode of just normal gameplay.
And functionally speaking, if we go back and we do that Yanu vote and have Randon leave, then you don't need to do a double boot later in the season to stay on schedule. So, I mean, if you're going to have a Medivac sometime in the pre-merge, maybe you can just nix the double boot because I don't need to see it always. We already earned the merge.
Yeah.
I don't love that our first boot doesn't make the jury, for example. I feel we've earned it after getting past Mergatory. So these are not strong feelings. These are just minor nitpicks.
I'll also say that I think it was important for them to introduce something like this to keep people on their toes as far as the castaways go. At this point, it seems like they're all expecting it. I don't think they're very surprised about having 2 immunities up for grabs or 2 people going home, being split into 2 tribes.
Toes, guys. Everyone's on their toes.
Like, you had a couple people that were like, oh, no way. But it seemed like everyone was expecting this to happen.
We're all in on it now. Well, should we jump into the episode proper here?
It's about time.
All right, spoiler alert, 3, 2, 1. We are going to lose Tim and Soda tonight in the double boot. I think none of us are super surprised at that outcome.
I was going to say, at least in our danger zone, Ryan, you and I had them flipped, but as second and third most likely to go home.
The only person I think we had below him was Venus, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I had Soda down there too. I don't know what I was thinking with my rankings going into this episode. But
I think I do. I think you were going more toward you're going to divide up the tribes. It's a good chance to get rid of like the Aussies, like the meatheads.
Meatheads, and then I was really heavy on the Yanu tribe losing a member tonight going into the episode. Not that I wanted to see that. I love Yanu, but it just seemed like a great opportunity to take them down a notch. They got lucky again, back-to-back episodes of all being on this same like division of the tribes.
A little good luck.
I was going to say reversion to the mean because this is the same group that started with Banu and just complete mess.
I'm curious if they would have been split 2 and 1, regardless of how that combination worked out, if one of them would have been on the chopping block.
For sure. But yeah, there's no real chance of any of them going tonight.
No.
So, group gets back to camp. Venus had 1 vote against her, and she believes it was Soda.
Oh, hearkening all the way back to Survivor Africa.
Yep. So Venus is going to confront her. They're going to go off to argue about it. So it's like, it wasn't me. I don't know what you're so mad about. It's great. We got them right where we want them. We got these 2 fighting. Nami's fractured. It's perfect for Siga. Then Charlie's going to be like, Venus, by the way, I was the one who voted for you. Charlie, why?
It's because Charlie is too young to remember Survivor Africa.
Yeah. Was he born yet? I don't know.
T-Bird does not admit to Lex that she voted for him.
Well, not till way later.
Not till way later.
Yeah, as like a Hail Mary to mix things up, I suppose. Just because she was going, and why not admit that and just see what happens, if anything. That's the only time I can say admit it. Because if you're going home, say whatever, basically. In general, just try and mix things up.
But if Nami is infighting, how about you just like let that happen?
Yep, 100%. Let him fight. And Q's like, Charlie, why? And he literally takes Charlie out to the beach to scold him. And we were joking on the podcast, or when we were watching the episode, that Q was basically being our mouthpiece. He was scolding Charlie for making this move and telling Venus that he voted for her. It's like, Q, thank you for being a mouthpiece for the Castaway Consultants. We appreciate it. But... well, you're out there. Don't do that. But if we ever invite Q on the podcast to be a consultant, we should call it the Castaway Consultant spelled with a Q.
I like it.
I mean, I'm all for it, except for it might look like a QAnon thing, and I don't think Q has anything to do with QAnon.
Let's hope not.
I would absolutely have Q on the podcast because the dude, his wheels are always turning, and I think that he could explain the game as well as any of them.
Yep.
Does
the game.
Does he make some questionable decisions at times? Absolutely. I don't think that scolding people about how they should be playing the game. Now, Banu, I get it.
He tried. He tried
for it.
But Q has taken that energy and is channeling it now into, all right, now I am the Survivor teacher. And everyone who's associated with me, I need to make sure that they can play the game at my level. Okay, but that's not necessarily good for you.
Yeah. And Charlie's going to apologize, but like Secret's like, screw you, I'm going to take you out next kind of attitude. Which, yeah, fair. People don't like... Don't be a dad on Survivor. Q, I know you're just like 29 playing this, I think. But you could be a 29-year-old dad. Don't be a dad on Survivor.
But see, like I was thinking about that rule. Don't be a dad. This is more like don't be a micromanager. Like this is
coach.
Yeah, this is like worse. Well, I mean, you can be a coach for my entertainment.
Yes, but like he's coaching people on how to play it, and you got to be careful doing that.
Yeah,
you know, if they ask for it specifically, fine. But Charlie
rare.
didn't ask for it. Let it go. During the night, Ben is going to have a nightmare and wake up, basically have a panic attack. And Kenzie's going to help him through it, hold his hand, and just like kind of talk him through it. It's a really, really nice human moment for Kenzie and Ben, who are two of my favorites on this season. And so we just get a nice bonding moment between the two of them, and they definitely get closer over the course of this episode. And honestly, Ben was very much in danger tonight. I think he should have gone home. We'll get more into that later. This might have been part of what saved him, is just this bond he formed with Kenzie. We don't see the full scope of how they ended up picking their target. But I think Kenzie may have had a little bit of input here and might want to keep Ben.
Well, and with really good players, they can influence these decisions, especially when it's just two different people. And for this group of three of Yanu, when it is an obvious decision of, okay, one of these two people are going home, really good players are able to deflect to a person who they think might be a little bit less likely to vote for them in the end. It's not in Kenzie's plan for Ben to be in the final three, but it is potentially Kenzie's plan and in her best interest to have him on the jury. Because if, it's in all Yanu, let's just say final three, and Ben has no other ties up there,
he's voting Kenzie.
He's voting Kenzie.
And that's a really good game way to look at it. But I also think in Survivor, especially on a game like Survivor, you have very few organic moments. And this is an organic moment that can bond them. And when you have those things, those are as good as any to rely on for trust, for building a foundation on which you can hopefully launch yourselves further into the game. Whatever that looks like, this moment is real, and that makes it all the harder for Ben to betray Kenzie or Kenzie to betray Ben, just because it is what it is. And the older I get, the more I think that those organic moments are keystone into what makes a great Survivor player great.
Yep.
And I do think this was a genuine human moment by Kenzie. It was just her personality.
Yeah, I don't think this was a game move.
Yeah.
But the best players can be genuine and still use those genuine moments as game moves. That's
After the fact, yeah.
That's the best you can be. I think if you want to be a peak Survivor player, you have to have these genuine human connections and use them.
Yeah, well, and this is why we always say, and again, I get hung up on that Reddit comment sometime where people are like, you guys are game body. But it's like, but would a game bot say that the social game is the most important part of Survivor? It's just we can't coach you guys on how to be a good person.
It's the one you can't really learn.
Yeah.
You can learn strategy, you can get fit. It's hard to learn the social game. You kind of either have it or you don't. You can get better. But I feel like there's a ceiling for how good you can get with the social game.
I feel like you can get less bad.
Yeah. Yep.
You can raise up your floor. Yep. I don't know how much you can raise up your ceiling, if that makes sense.
You can only get so good because of who you are and whatnot. But yeah, this is great. Really like this. Immunity challenge. 10 minutes into the episode, we're going to the immunity challenge. Dang.
Whoa.
I love it.
Might be the earliest ever. It might be. But we're going to get divided into two groups, and both groups are going to go to tribal council separately. One person from each group is going to win immunity. Two people are getting voted out. The winner overall, that group will get reward and get to vote second, and that person will make the jury. The person who gets voted out of the first group will not make the jury. Same thing we did last season. So our orange group is Ben, Hunter, Kenzie, Tim, Tiffany, and Q. So all three Yanni members are here. And this is the group that's going to go to tribal council first. And Kenzie is going to win immunity from this group, but will drop out before everyone on purple. So they're going to tribal council first.
Yeah, by the skin of her teeth, she wins.
The purple group is Tevin, Liz, Soda, Charlie, Maria, and Venus. Maria is going to win immunity. They're going to go to tribal council second, and they get reward. So we have Maria and Kenzie are safe. And what we're going to do here, kind of like we did last time, is we're just going to go through all of everything that happens with the orange group, all the way through the road out, and then we'll rewind time. We'll turn back the hourglass and go to the purple group.
We're going to do this as linearly as we can.
Yeah. Instead of bouncing back and forth, just because, make it make sense. So, orange group. Hunter is all alone. He's the only Nami here. He's like, I might have to play my idol. That's a fair response, and I wouldn't have blamed him for playing it, but he's not going to correctly. So, good for Hunter.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he doesn't play his idol also potentially saves Tiffany's idol, too, because there could be a chain reaction that's set off by just one advantage going out there.
Totally. And it's looking like that might happen next week and the next time on Survivor.
And we might not get to the point where we talk about it because we just mentioned that he doesn't play his idol. Nobody sitting at this table would have been mad had he played.
No, absolutely not.
Especially like this. You don't make the jury if you're out here.
In New Age Survivor, this is why you want hardware. I would say, you want hardware for when people are targeting you, but you also kind of want hardware for when the game targets you a little bit. And I would much rather use it to get through some weird, messy game mechanic than trying to get past like people.
Yeah, this is going to be the easiest opportunity for people to take out the big threats. When it's small tribes like this and there's nowhere to hide and your allies might not necessarily be there for you.
So, yeah, if you feel the slightest inkling of danger, play it probably, especially in a situation like this. I think Hunter didn't, besides just the basic level paranoia. I don't think he felt anymore.
Yeah.
I've got to assume that it was just... Yanu had made it obvious enough that the decision was between Tim and Ben that they had to really figure out. I'm going to trust him.
Yep. Q was going to tell us he jumped off the challenge on purpose.
Yeah, okay.
Because he wanted to see if he could trust his loyalty, like his alliance to be loyal to him. Okay, great plan, because, like, either yes or you're out.
Also, it's kind of like the discussion they have on the other tribe where it's, Liz doesn't bring her bag, which we can talk about later. But like, okay, it's really easy to, in air quotes, fall out of the challenge when half the tribe is made up of Yanu.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is not the flex you think it is, at least in my opinion.
It reminded me of when Philip said that in Caramelin.
Yes, I was trying to think of who it was. Thank you.
I actually threw the grappling hook challenge. I lost on purpose. It's like, did you though? And it could be true for Q, but also it's like, did you though?
And I'm just like, that almost makes it worse. It almost makes it worse.
I would say it does make it worse if you dropped out of this one on purpose. I'd say it does make it worse.
Especially when it is so weird of a time. With Shot in the Dark in the game, idols that might be out there, and you are in an uncertain spot, and this is the one. This is the time.
This is not the time to throw a challenge.
No.
Look, we love the challenge throw.
We love a challenge
pre-merge. But Q and Tim, they're going to talk about keeping the six together. This Journey 6, the +1 alliance that they've been talking about, which is a reminder, is Q and Tiffany, Tim and Maria, Tevin and Hunter. So the obvious person would be Ben. It could be Kenzie technically, but the Anu 3 are about Kenzie. So that leaves Ben. Ben's the obvious target. But Tim, he's like, well, why don't we take out Hunter? And Q's like, well, he's part of the 6. And Tim's like, yeah, so what?
But he's also Nami.
He's also a huge threat. Oh, so Tim, you're not really in on the whole Journey 6 alliance there, are you, bud?
Yeah, shows your hand over and over again. He did this last episode too, where he showed that he's not committed to the 6, which, again, like this kind of came out of nowhere. This random 6 alliance came out of nowhere on Mystery Adventure Island, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't just roll with it until you don't need to anymore. He is playing his hand and showing that he values Sega over anything else.
And after what happened in the last episode where they were all accused of that, it's not a good look.
Tim, maybe not the greatest player.
Yeah, not the greatest player. So yeah, for Tim, just he should be talking to Q and hear what Q has to say first. Honestly, he should let Q be the first one to throw out a name and then probably just go along with it.
Well, because I want to know what he was thinking. Obviously he's thinking Ben.
Yep.
That's the logical conclusion here. But all you have to do is just agree and be like, yeah, like. I don't want to go after a Sega, but I think that would be the right thing to do. Because that can also just save you. Maybe it doesn't end up being Ben in the end. Maybe it does end up being Hunter. But that just removes your name from the conversation.
Yeah. Tim does not have any power here, so the best he can do is save himself and try and keep this possible 6 connection for later on and use that.
And I'm going to agree even further. I think that Ben beats Tim at the end. And there's no reason for Tim to try and drag Ben to the end as a Sega as long as he still has options to get through this game mechanic. Get through today where you are clearly outnumbered, regroup with your Vibe Tribe numbers, hopefully, and then try and make a little bit more noise with, a whittled down Nami that's still fractured as crud. Sega, what's left, and Yanu, which is no longer really a minority position after this point. Pray for time, man.
Yep.
And now is not the time.
But he is not going to stop pitching Hunter. He does not stop.
Can't stop, won't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop. So Q, Tiffany, and Kenzie, they're all going to vote Tim. Tiffany would rather vote Ben because she sees Tim as more transparent and obvious what he's doing. Fair. I think we agree with that one. I think Ben is the... I don't know if he's more dangerous, but he's definitely harder to read.
Yeah, I think you can tell that from Tim's conversation with Q. Even when it's the wrong thing to say, he'll say it.
When it boils down to it, Ben has a stronger social game than Tim based on what we see. So by that, I would say Ben is a pretty darn good choice here.
Ben's going to try and save himself a little bit by kind of going along with Q. He's like, yeah, we'll vote out Hunter. And, I'll roll the dice. You guys can tell Hunter to put my name down. And if he plays his idol, he plays his idol. That's Survivor. And this level of comfort that Q perceives is like, well, he's safe. We can take him out. And Tiffany and Kenzie, they're like, well, couldn't that mean he's feeling comfortable because he has something?
It's hard to take it at face value.
Yeah, exactly.
I get what Tiffany is saying. I think I agree with her read on it, that it could be absolutely nothing. But at this point, in once again this small of a tribe, you have another option, so why risk it?
Yeah. So Q, he wants to change the vote to Ben. He said Tim first, now he's changing it to Ben. And Kenzie and Tiffany are just getting frustrated with Q because he's trying to control everything. He's constantly changing his mind. They're not going to take him out this time, but someday, soon, the soon meme.
A little foreshadowing, huh?
Mm-hmm. One thing I want to talk about before we leave this tribe, let's pretend that people could be who they aren't for a second, all right? Is there a world where the three non-Yanu come together, force a tie, and try and take out a Kenzie because she's a big threat?
Kenzie's got immunity.
Sorry, not Kenzie. Maybe Tiffany or Q. Like, try and target a Yanu member.
They could try it, but again, that's going to a tie, and besides the idol, they don't have any hardware. So, and plus, I think Hunter does want to work with Q because they're part of the 6.
Yeah, I see zero interest in Hunter's side just because, and also that just goes to, okay, what comes after this? Yeah. It just doesn't make sense in the short term.
And I think what it would come down to on Hunter's part is the +1 alliance because he's in it, and in theory, Tim is in that as well, which would point the arrow at Ben, but obviously Tim is planting his flag in Sega. So they're that's why I said forget about who all these people are for a second. Yeah. Let's just look at numbers. But I think you're right that this was never meant to be.
But we're gonna go to Tribal Council, and it's gonna end up being 4 votes for Tim, 2 votes for Hunter. I think it probably should have been Ben. Maybe they got scared off because of idle possible stuff by his comments. That's possible, but I just think Tim is so easy to read. And you can keep the illusion up of the 6, even though it's a 4 now. Tim is not in the 6 anymore, even if he thinks he is. I think probably Ben would have been the better move overall. Tim is fine, but I just think if optimally, it probably would have been Ben. But this is good for Kenzie because she keeps that connection. But for Q and Tiffany, I think Ben would have been the better move.
I actually don't want to quite go that far because I think after 2 votes in this, quasi-merge situation, Tim has proven that he wants to work with exactly one group of people, Sega. He's not going to work with you. That might be predictable, but that might be that type of stoic gameplay can be dangerous when you have Maria and Charlie, real threats to win the game, who have a guaranteed number in Tim because he's just not going to waver. He's like the general, right? He's like the hockey player from season 41. He's the first Canadian guy to play.
Oh, the 39, Tom Laidlaw.
Or yeah, Tom Laidlaw. He's like Tom Laidlaw. He's like the general. He's like these guys. He's not gonna waver. Okay, cool. We can't work with you. You're gone. At least with Ben, there's a chance.
Sure.
And people on Yanu, I think they all think they can beat Ben. I think that 2 of them can beat Ben. But we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Nice little tease.
I
agree with Derek here. I think this was the right move. Now, if you put me immediately after the immunity challenge, I probably would say that Ben was the right move here. But the fact that he's being a little shady with whether or not he might have an advantage, why even put the risk out there of putting votes on him and then them getting voided out? Also, exactly everything that Derek said about not being able to work with Tim. I'm not too worried about the +1 alliance being broken because I feel like it already was broken. And I don't think that's the type of thing that you need to worry about with Maria.
We'll get into what Twitter say after we do the second Tribal Council. All right. Hourglass time. We're turning back the clock. The Purple Tribe. So we had 4 members of Nami, 2 members of Sega. Of the 2, Maria's immune. That leaves Charlie. Charlie's the obvious one. Charlie's going home tonight. Except no one wants that, it turns out.
Spoiler alert, he received 0 votes.
Nami is a mess. They're all going to turn on each other hilariously.
Yeah, maybe they should have gone to tribal before the merge.
Yeah, I think this is real evidence that going into the merge without having gone to tribal is not great.
It's so interesting because we very rarely have said throw a challenge. Ryan and I, it's a running joke in this podcast. Whenever someone throws a challenge and it was not appropriate to do so, we're like, we love the old challenge throw. In New Era Survivor, it's getting to the point, in my opinion, if you know a Mergatory is coming up and you haven't lost yet, and you know that you're not going home if you go to tribal, like, you might want to do it. You might want to consider it.
You might want to consider it. Because if you don't go to tribal council at all, you're just so unprepared for the merge. And it just so rarely goes well. The only time it has ended up working out, and it didn't even work out. It's just Erica survived in 41.
Yeah, she managed to scrape by.
She scraped by. But yeah, in general, the tribe that doesn't go to tribal council at all pre-merge is a disaster and completely caves in on itself later on. So it is something to consider. I still don't know if I would ever truly recommend it.
I think there needs to be an obvious choice.
Yeah.
Like this time around, if they would have gone to tribal, Venus would have been going home if it was the last episode of the pre-merge.
One thing we didn't see much of in the pre-merge was exactly how much Soda and Venus and Liz didn't really get along with each other. That trio really seems to be a ticking time bomb. And if we had seen how truly bad it was, maybe we do advocate for a challenge, sort of like release some of the pressure on this tribe. So one, you can build some trust, and two, get rid of whatever it is that is sowing the toxicity.
Why doesn't Liz like Soda?
We don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, we had a little bit of Venus and Soda. That came up a couple of times in the pre-merge.
Liz is such a question mark.
But we had to think to ourselves at the time, oh, well, I mean, they need to show us something on Nami because, we know Yanu's going back to tribal council.
They were already talking about blindsiding Soda at that point.
Soda is the first one to say, hey, let's take out Venus instead of Charlie. We'll make her feel safe, but we're going to take out Venus. But Tevin wants to change it up even more. He wants to take out Soda. He wants to seize the opportunity to take Soda off the map. Why? Soda trusts Tevin. There's no reason for Tevin to turn on Soda here. This is a case of big move-itis. This is way too soon because Soda is going to go home here because of Tevin. It's Tevin's call, basically, as much as Venus is going to pretend otherwise. This is a bad move from Tevin. Yeah,
this goes... I mean, I think we said big move-itis when this came up in the pre-merge about him talking to... him being Tevin talking to Liz and Hunter about blindsiding Soda. He planted those seeds early on, like, hey, this is going to be something that we'll want to keep an eye on because she is talking to so many people. That's going to end up being a threat down the line. If they would have taken out someone like Venus early on, gone to tribal or whatever in the pre-merge, okay, that would maybe make a little bit more sense now in accelerating that timeline. But at this point, you have someone who is very clearly not wanting to work with you. Now, she does in this vote, but just going forward, she's not going to end up working with you. So why? Why not vote her out?
The dumbest thing, in my opinion, is that we've had one group-ish vote so far, and half the people were immune.
Yep.
Tevin, Soda's not voting for you at the next tribal council. Why are you voting her out now? I mean, maybe you want to vote her out at the next one. I mean, I guess that's your prerogative depending on how things are going, but she wasn't going to vote for you. I don't understand this push.
Nope.
It doesn't make sense to me.
And I agree with Tevin that eventually she will make a move on you because it seems like she is a very knowledgeable and strategic player in that way. So she is going to turn on you at some point. You're not making it to the end together. You just have to make that move before she does. And it, like Derek said, it's not going to be this move and it's not going to be next move. So you have time.
And you know who will turn on you? Venus.
Literally whenever.
Whenever.
For a bag of Cheetos, man.
Yeah.
Like for fun.
Yeah, for fun.
Venus will do it for fun.
No, to make a name for herself.
Yep.
Because she said that in this episode.
She's got a game of big movies too. Now, to be fair, she kind of needs to.
Yes.
Which we've talked about. Venus is going to try to go to Maria, and Maria does not handle this very well. She proposes going after Tevin, and Maria doesn't bite at all. She's like, let me think about it. I'll come back later. And then later, Maria's like, nah, you're a little aggro for me.
Yeah, a little aggro.
Would not recommend
No.
saying this. Now it helps that Maria has immunity,
Yeah.
so she can kind of do this and be perfectly fine.
But I mean, Venus isn't likely to come climbing up the Maria tree again. Like, it's just probably not going to happen unless she's no choice. It's not great.
I think Venus will go back to Maria. I don't love that Maria is kind of coaching her on it, and I don't really like that she was super forthright. I think if you have a pretty good idea that somebody's going home, which is pre-shot in the dark era, so this is old Survivor at this point, maybe you can let him in on it because you're doing jury management. You know that she might be sitting out there, and you want to build some bridges. Not now, not this time, not here. I let her dig her own grave, entertain her a little bit. For all we know, maybe Maria was on the beach and people were up at camp and watching them have that conversation, and she wanted to make sure that she was coming across as very blasé about it because everyone knows how, in Ryan's words, aggro Venus is playing.
Yeah, what Maria could have done here is like, yeah, sure, that's a good idea, and then immediately gone and tell Tevin, like, yeah, she's gunning for you. That's probably the best way Maria could have done it.
Yeah.
Venus is gonna move on to go to Charlie next, and she's like, let's break up Soda and Tevin, and Charlie's just like, I think I'm just gonna play my shot in the dark. And Venus is like, well, fine, I guess I'll just vote for you. It seems like the smart play for me. Oof.
Oh, red flags all around Venus.
That quote in Toy Story, it's Mr. Potato Head. He's like, hey, I have a better idea. How about we don't?
And this is all before they're all like going to vote for the same person.
So we're gonna go to Tribal Council. Liz does not bring her stuff to Tribal Council and draws attention to that. She brings that up herself. Going all the way back to Australian Outback when Chef Keith did that. Everybody thought he was arrogant and cocky for doing that. Liz, bring your crap with you to Tribal Council. It's not that hard. And all this does is burn some goodwill with a jury. Bad.
I think it was intentional.
Maybe.
I think the point was, we are so Nami strong that I didn't even bring my bag.
If you want to do that, that's something you will have to say at Final Tribal Council, but it's going to come off as arrogant and cocky.
But to me, that doesn't come up unless it's basically intentional at this point. And in fact, future Survivor players take note. If someone doesn't bring their stuff, it means that your tribe probably isn't staying together. Because, we're just really trying to make someone feel comfortable so they don't use a shot in the dark.
Just always bring your stuff to Tribal Council. You'll look so stupid if you don't bring your stuff and then you get voted out. Just bring your stuff with.
Yeah, I do like that point though, Derek, that this should be a red flag too. Even like Tevin, Venus, and Soda, like obviously Venus and Soda, because she ended up going home. But what are the things that she is saying right alongside that? Like, yes, she didn't bring her bag, but what else is she saying? Mm-hmm. Why is she not bringing her bag? Because whatever she's saying, it's a lie.
Now, let's say Liz comes to you beforehand and says, hey guys, I'm not going to bring my stuff to Tribal Council because I really want to put up the face of Nami Strong. You say, absolutely, Liz, don't bring your stuff to Tribal Council. And then later you have a conversation like, what was that? Liz didn't even bring her stuff to Tribal Council. That's how sure she was that she was safe.
That'd be great.
Let's vote out Liz. It'd be hilarious.
Well, the theme of this episode is do not coach thine enemy.
Yes.
Q, Maria, and so everyone who let Liz not bring her stuff. Good stuff.
Don't interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake.
Correct.
That's who said that?
Sun Tzu, is that I don't know.
I think it's Napoleon.
Is it Napoleon?
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Don't interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. Appears to be Napoleon.
All right.
Don't interrupt your enemy when making a mistake, Napoleon. Or also Sun Tzu.
Derek.
So who stole it from who?
Flat. I'm pretty sure Sun Tzu is like
old.
Old. If it was actually Sun, dude. Like, oh my gosh.
Wait.
What a poll.
Okay. Sun Tzu wrote it first, Napoleon regurgitated it.
Derek's so proud of himself.
You need to find a way to leave this in. That was great. Oh, the video. I'm cheesing right now.
Oh, yeah. You deserved it.
But yes, I'm gonna take that quote. Now Napoleon can steal the quote. I'm gonna do it now.
There you go.
That's a Ryan Stacy original right there.
Yes.
Michael Jordan, Michael Scott, Napoleon, Sun Tzu, Ryan Stacy.
Exactly.
Not maybe that order, but
Unless you really want it, sure, why not?
But Tribal Council, 4 votes for Soda, 2 votes for Venus. Tevin is gonna be one of the votes for Venus, I'm sure, for shot in the dark purposes. But Venus is gonna take credit because it was like, Venus, was that you, girl? And Venus is like, yeah, it was me. And Tevin's over there like, no, that was me. And the best part is Venus 100% believes that it was her.
Yeah, earlier in the podcast you said she's going to pretend otherwise. No, she believes otherwise.
She's going to believe it. She believes it. Hey, it's not a lie if you believe it.
Yeah, I mean, we get that all the time where it doesn't come out usually until final tribal council that one person thinks it's their move, but it's really someone else. It's like, ooh, actually, then a little more information.
That's how Cassidy lost at in 43.
Other people can corroborate it if they're on the jury. They're gonna get all the information possible when they're out there just talking away. So the truth will come out.
So Soda's gone. This should have been Venus because Tevin should not have turned on Soda. That was such a bad move on his part, and Liz. I'll throw Liz in there too. That is a bad move. Venus has shown she's actively willing to turn on you. If you can't trust her, that's fine. The damage with that relationship has been done years ago. So coming into this episode, if we drop us in here, that was already broken. Get rid of Venus. Tevin turning on Soda is stupid. Now, this is great for Charlie and Maria, and it turns out Venus, because they could seize the opportunity and get rid of more of a power player and leave this chaotic energy that Venus is to draw attention away from themselves. But if everyone played optimally, Tevin would never even thrown Soda's name out, and Venus just goes home.
I don't want to say that Venus was obviously the right move, and I think part of this is we haven't done our official rank down, dank downs yet. They're coming this episode. But we have had Liz and Venus as the two people who cannot win, which means that everybody who goes home that isn't them is good for them until future notice. So we've got Liz and Venus, and then we've got two Siga who are clearly on the bottom and outnumbered by 4 people on Nami. And Soda, a power player, went home partially and mostly because her primary ally who was there turned on her. That's a horrible move for him, but I don't want to let it that it's a horrible move for him make it that it's not the best move for the most number of people there. Because I don't know that that's actually the case.
But it is.
I don't see it that way. I think this might have been the best move for the most number of people there, and I almost need to trust the cast this time. I almost need to trust them. It is a horrible move for Tevin. I absolutely agree with you 100%. He should not have done it. He shouldn't have floated the idea. He shouldn't want credit for this. Because that's like the silliest thing. He wants credit.
This is bad for Tevin, for Liz, and for Soda.
But I don't necessarily see it that way.
I mean, the one...
Wait, I said that this is bad for Tevin, this is bad for Liz, obviously bad for Soda. You said you don't see that way?
It might not be bad for Liz.
First of all, you said it's bad for Soda. I mean, Soda went home, so it's obviously bad for her. It's bad for Tevin, but it's
bad for Liz.
But I don't think that anything for Liz and Venus when they are on the bottom and they need to make moves and they need to be a part of something and they can't win against anybody else.
That is a good point. That is a good point. Okay, here's what I'll say. Maybe it should have been Charlie then.
And I can see that it could have been Charlie.
If Liz needs to keep Venus to win, that is a really good point. I think you've won me over. I will say Charlie is the right move then.
And that's why I'm just like, if Nami can't stay together, if this Nami time bomb had to explode today, which ideally it doesn't need to, but if it was gonna, then I guess Soda's the right person to go home. But maybe they stay together and they get rid of another Siga who wants to play game Siga. I think that might be good for a fractal Nami. It's really weird.
I want to mark this for the record because this doesn't happen super often. I've changed my mind, Derek. You're right.
Thank you. I did it.
Nice job.
Appreciate you.
Well done.
See, and I, in classic Josh fashion, was gonna try and play both sides here.
So you always come out on top?
Because I always come out on top that way.
We should vote him out.
Because I think there are two different answers depending on what time of the episode you drop this in at. If it's immediately right after the immunity challenge, I think it was the wrong person to go home. After Tevin brings all this stuff up and even opens up the possibility of it not being Charlie or not being Venus, okay, like Pandora's box, it ends up being the right decision if you drop us in, halfway through their discussion or even just like at Final Tribal Council. Then it's the right person because it's good for the majority of people. I love Derek's point because I didn't even think about the Liz of it all.
The Liz of it all.
Liz and Venus need to go to the end together.
Whether Liz can beat Venus or Venus can beat Liz, they definitely need each other.
Yeah,
Time will tell.
They got to be the final
Hopefully
two
not.
to have a chance, really. Derek is right. Liz and Venus need each other. You still can't get rid of Soda, though. I think Soda is a bad move, especially from Tevin's part. They need to stick together. They need to take out Charlie and weaken Sega some more.
Yeah, threat level wise, it seems like Soda and Charlie are about on the same level. I would say they're fairly close if you put those rank downs
Charlie
together.
seems more likable. I think everyone likes Charlie. There's some people who don't like Soda.
It seems like it's just Venus
And
And
Liz.
Liz.
and Liz, but they don't really matter in this conversation. I feel like, but
That's why I'm putting Charlie higher.
okay,
Everyone likes Charlie.
okay, fine.
So I'll ultimately say this was the wrong move. It should have been Charlie. Final answers here.
I originally said no.
I'm going to say on paper it should be Charlie, but if Nami had to blow up, then Soda.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate representation.
That I've got no choice because so much happens with Nami.
Yeah.
Like there are clearly
There are so many decision branches that are being broken out just based off of the conversations, and depending on what timeline you're on, the answer is completely different.
Last word on this. This is perfectly represented by every single person on Nami going up to Charlie and telling him, "You're safe," because Nami hates itself.
Yep. So bad.
So how can I look at the paper at that point and say, "Yep, it should be Charlie"? It's so
It's very easy. You just say, "Wow, watch this. Ready? Maybe we shouldn't blow up our original starting tribe and give Sieg an advantage." Charlie goes home. Look, just because you have 4 bad players on the tribe, it doesn't mean because they all did it doesn't mean it make it good.
I like I said, on paper Charlie, but in practice probably Soda.
What does Twitter have to say?
Yeah, and this is always an interesting one when there's a double boot, just based off of the selections, because we do give 4 options whenever this comes up. The most popular one with 44% of the vote is yes to both. So it was the right move on both of them.
Huh. Interesting, because I said no on both of them. Interesting. Oh, Twitter. Way to be wrong again.
And if you're wondering, the one each, so yes, no, and no, yes, were practically tied, and then last place is no to both. How does it feel, Ryan?
I'm fine. I'll be fine. Twitter didn't agree with me. Oh darn.
Ryan can shrug off Twitter's opinion
Very easily. It's not that hard. Thanks for voting, everybody.
There you go.
At Castaway Pod.
Stay off Twitter at Castaway Pod.
We did get a couple questions on Twitter, and so no better time than the present to do that. From Brandon, he asks, could Venus turn her game around at least slightly now that Maria told her what she was doing wrong? Maybe she teams up with Charlie and Maria and then cuts one late to at least be a threat for a vote at Final Tribal.
You can almost always turn your game around, and Venus hasn't done anything that egregious. Yes, she can turn her game around. Don't know how much, but she can.
Honestly, for Venus, her biggest obstacle is people taking her seriously. Mm-hmm. And once that perception is built, it seems like we see it, one person every season that they just stop being taken seriously.
I'm going to cut to the most extreme example of something like this is Aris going up to Colton and saying, your game's sunk. We know what your game is, and I'm sorry, it's not going to work. Venus is not Colton, and she is not in that position, but I think it's clear that the only way she comes out victorious is if she takes several big swings and hits them all out of the park. She's in a very bad spot where nobody's taking her seriously.
Yep.
So thank you for that question, Brandon. We also got one from Blake. He asked, do you think they quit letting split tribes sit in on the second tribal council because of what happened in 42 with Drea, Marianne, and Tori, like not wanting the first tribal to affect the other?
Well, it wasn't a case of them sitting in, was it? It was that they got to see the results because the person was on the jury. Rockshore got voted out, and they were on the jury. So I don't think it was a sitting in. It's just it's a placement of where this double boot is happening. One person doesn't make the jury here, so we don't get to see the results. So the question for me is, did they like what happened on 42? Because that was drama, that was TV. That's interesting for TV producers. I don't think they have a reason to dislike what happened on 42. I think it was just more they wanted to just try something different.
And by the way, I would say that was by design on 42.
Yeah.
I think that was a feature, not a bug. And
Yeah.
maybe in hindsight, the producers viewed it as more of a bug because it didn't feel as organic. But I also think that was kind of the point, was you get to see who's on the jury, and that was part of the advantage, was they eat and then they got to do tribal second.
Yep.
So maybe they just didn't like what it was. It's very interesting from a production standpoint, and maybe one of those times where you could ask Jeff on the Odd Fire podcast. That might be something that they'd read out on that.
Yeah.
I'm curious if they are wanting, from a production side, if they are wanting to have this be more just like two isolated tribals, like two kind of individual experiments, almost like an A/B test that's going on, completely pure and nothing else being affected that isn't equal on the other side. I'm guessing that might have something to contribute to it, just because one tribal was completely different than the other in that regard from 42, and building out some sort of like contingency plan based on who went home. But like you said, who knows?
All right, let's get into best and worst player of the episode. And since 2 people went home in this episode, we're giving out 2 awards. Josh, start us off. Who are your 2 best players of the episode?
The first one was easy for me. It was Kenzie, and she ended up winning immunity. That's the obvious thing. But then also her social connection that she made with Ben, whether or not it's just her being a genuine human being and being a good person. And that's one thing. But also, Ben didn't go home. So it's possible that connection can pay dividends in the future. Second person was a little bit tougher. I went with Hunter here. He held on to his idol, made the correct read not to play it. Obviously did not go home. A member of Siga went home. So, and it didn't really seem like it was that much in question ever. Just behind the scenes between the 3 Yanu. So I feel like there's got to be something good there with them wanting to keep Hunter around. It was even brought up by, I think it was Tim, talking about how much of a threat he is, and they're all basically saying like, yeah, but Siga. So good on Hunter for, kind of suppressing his threat level however you can at this point.
I agree completely, man. We're Kenzie and Hunter as well.
I went a different direction. I split this off into 2 groups of 6. So take that into account. If I had done it your way, I would agree with you. But I did it this way, so it'll be a little different. My best for the one was Kenzie. That was easy. More interestingly, on the other one, it was kind of hard. Even like with all the badness that happened, I just landed on Maria. I don't like how she scolded Venus on the beach a little bit, but she won immunity. She guaranteed that someone was going to be able to make the jury, so she had a chance to influence the first jury member in her favor if she wanted to. Asiga did not go home. And she played her position with the necklace. She just kind of let the pieces topple around her, and sometimes inaction is the best action when Nami gonna go full Nami. To be clear, it would have been Hunter if I had done it your guys' way.
And if I'd done it your way, it would have been Maria.
Same.
So, okay, we're all on the same page.
Yes.
Worst players. I mean, again, we have 2. I'll go first this time. My first one goes to Q. He's trying to control way too much of the game. Charlie, Kenzie, and Tiffany are all pissed at him. And again, I thought taking out Tim is worse for him than taking out Ben. So Q is my first one. My second one is Tevin. Taking out Soda is a terrible move for him.
I mean, I'll just knock Tevin out of the way. That one's easy. I also landed on Q. But I'm going to take out the voting out Tim, because I don't mind that he voted out Tim, but I'm going to slip in coaching thine enemy again.
Yep.
You don't need to do that. And you probably shouldn't do that. Just let them dig their hole. It's okay. You don't need to chastise Charlie, and you're making enemies. So I have Q for my second.
I have both those as well. And I don't know if you did those in order of the worst person first, but I had Tevin first.
Yeah, I ultimately had Q worse than Tevin, but they're both very bad. Okay, let's get into who's going next, and this is a crapshoot if I've ever seen one, because not only are we haven't really seen this whole group in action. 2 different things just happened. 2 different people were voted out for entirely different groups of people. And next time on Survivor gave us nothing except, oh my god, it's going to be a crazy tribal council.
And Hunter in a tree.
Hunter's hiding in a tree.
Heck yeah.
Because again, I like to subscribe to Hubicki's Law.
Hubicki's Theory. I knew you were waiting for it.
Yep. Give me what I want, Derek.
I alley, you oop. That's how we play the game.
And whoever they're telling me is going home in the next time on Survivor, 90% of the time, that's not happening. Except we weren't given one this time, so it's a complete crapshoot. I'm going with the person who's pissing off the most people and who is a genuine challenge threat, and that's Q.
I am very sad to say I think it's going to be Maria's time. I think people are going to see Maria as fairly dangerous. We still have Yanu. Nami got whittled down at least a little bit here. And Maria, well in the +1 / like Journey 6 alliance, we're getting to the point of the game where we need to be more individual. And I think people will identify her threat level and see that she needs to go. So I have Maria going next.
Okay.
Third straight week, I'm putting Kenzie out there. And you can't really say that I've been wrong so far. I just haven't been right because she's been immune each time.
Right.
So if Kenzie becomes vulnerable, I think that she'd be the first one to go.
Okay.
Ryan, Josh just said we can't say that he's been wrong.
I mean, like...
I'm neither wrong nor right.
Yeah, I know. I understand what he's saying. Kenzie hasn't been available to vote out. You're correct. What will happen when she's available to vote out? We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you, you've been wrong, Josh, but you can continue to be wrong.
And if you
want.
And if you want my reasoning for it, I'm not going to spell it out. Just listen to the last episode.
Okay. So this is where we're okay. This is where we talk about who can't win the game. Again, there's two people who can't win this game. Who are they? But now that we are in the jury has started, we are in a segment we expanded upon last season. It's based off something I like to do for years and years and years. Ryan's rank downs. After every episode, I like to rank from most likely to win to least likely to win if the game were to stop today. So if we're voting for a winner today, most likely to win to least likely to win. And out of nowhere last season, Derek and Josh surprised me with their own versions, the Dank Down and the Jank Down, and where they do the same thing. And so we're going to talk about them. Our full rank Jank and Dank Downs here tonight. Derek, what is your Dank Down? Start from the top and end with who can outwin this game.
Sounds good. At the top, I have Maria. The reason being, there's going to be a lot of Siga and a lot of Nami on this jury, and I can't discount that when it comes to trying to figure out who's at the top of the block. So I've got Maria at number 1, followed by Kenzie and Tiffany. Then I have Hunter, Tevin, Charlie, and then Q, Ben, with my 2 who cannot win the game, Liz and Venus.
And Liz beats Venus?
I have Liz beats Venus currently.
Yeah, can I also say that this is one of my favorite new segments that we do. I don't
so jank.
I love it so much.
You mean dank?
we get a voice, Derek.
We do.
So the bottom is actually fairly similar to Derek's, but I will start from the top as well. I have Hunter and Maria very, very, very close together. I really struggled with who is 1 and who is 2. I'm putting Hunter at number 1 right now. And which leaves Maria number 2, obviously, followed by Kenzie and Tiffany, who also were very close for me. I do think that as the game progresses, Tiffany will end up passing Kenzie if they both stick around. But if the game ended today, I think Kenzie would beat Tiffany.
Yeah, and I want to just cut in for a second. They were super close. Ben is my tiebreaker between Tiffany and Kenzie right now. But they are like the same.
Ben is also my tiebreaker for those 2.
Interesting. So that makes Kenzie 3rd, Tiffany 4th, followed by Tevin, then Charlie, Q, Ben, Liz, and Venus. Okay. I see some surprise faces over there from Ryan, actually, just one surprise face.
There's 2 that I have next to each other that you both have in the reverse order, and it's blowing my mind.
Ben's a very likable guy. I have not seen anything from him strategically, so that's purely just based off of if the game ended today. Doesn't mean he can't move up. That's the point of these rankings.
Or move down.
But if I think that Q can beat Ben in the end right now.
So I have Kenzie as my number 1, followed by Tiffany. Then I have Charlie and Maria, and again, very close. Tiebreaker was literally just that because Maria told Venus she was being aggro. That's the only reason I split that's how I split those 2 up. Another duo, Hunter and Tevin. I just think Hunter hasn't pissed as many people off as Tevin has, and even that's close. So a lot of duos here. Then I have Ben, just because he's so likable. Then I have Q because he's interrupting his enemy when they're making a mistake. And then Venus, and then Liz. Soda is now the mayor of Ponderosa, and she's leaving the game with a positive view of Venus because Venus took the credit for voting her out. That is great. If the mayor of Ponderosa has a positive view of you as they're leaving the game, that's pretty good. So I think that helps Venus out. So I'll put Venus above Liz just because she's doing stuff. But Venus and Liz cannot win this game.
I think I should also clarify with mine, since I put Liz above Venus. If the game ended today, and this is another thing just from last episode that I mentioned that is good to clarify, is that if Liz and Venus do make it to the end together, I do think that there are things that had to have happened that Venus's action would probably push her above Liz.
Sure.
So that's where like it's hard to evaluate that in that way. I'm trying to take it from today, what it would look like.
Yeah, and much to Derek's chagrin, we are ignoring variable T with respect to these rank, dank, and jank downs to a certain extent.
Everything can change.
Yep.
We're just going off what we know.
Yes.
I'm surprised Hunter is so far down your guys' list.
He just hasn't had the opportunity, really, I think, to get higher for me.
I have him at 4th from the top. I think that's about as high as he can be without honestly having done anything within the merge group.
This was the first time I got to vote.
Yeah.
And I am at 5th, so we'll see.
And now that we've started to do the rank down, the jank down, and the dank down, the question, short answer on Spotify going forward is going to be for you guys to do your power rankings. You're most likely to win, least likely to win. Do your own jank, rank, or dank down. Submit it, and we are going to aggregate the listener rankings, and we will post those based on the results we get. So there will be me, Ryan, Josh, and then it'll be listener average. We love tracking it last season, so we're going to keep doing it going forward.
If you don't listen on Spotify and you would also like to participate, really send to any of our social media, reply on anything, any of the videos on YouTube, Facebook, or just in our DMs on Twitter or Instagram. Go for it there as well.
Where's all of our social media? We can just do that now.
Yeah, Castaway Pod is Twitter and Instagram. Castaway Consultants is TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. Super easy to just message us anywhere on there. Oh, and Threads as well.
Oh, yeah, can't forget Threads.
Can't forget Threads, even though I forget Threads a lot.
Okay, the last thing we got to do, and Josh, you're no longer relevant.
Yeah, do you want me to narrate for you? Because I have plenty of time.
Yeah.
He's the banker.
He's the banker. We got to check in on our survivor pool. Last week, I had Hunter, and you had
Tiffany.
We both are still alive, so we move on to fight another day. At this point, would it be easier just to say who we have left?
Yes.
Yeah, actually it would, because Ryan, you have actually, I should say neither of you guys had picked either Tim or Soda yet, so both of them are off the board, obviously, for you and wasted. And wow, you guys are so bad at this.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ryan, you only have 4 people left. Derek has 5.
Okay.
Your eligible people to choose are Kenzie, Q, Venus, and Ben.
Okay. I'm going to go with Venus as my pick because I just don't... yeah, she could obviously do something dumb and blow up her game, but there's no real reason to vote her out, and I think there's genuine, credible reasons, more likely reasons for the other 3 to vote out. So I'm going to pick Venus.
And then, Derek, you have Kenzie, Venus, Tevin, Ben, and Maria left. So a couple different ones.
And this is very anticlimactic, but I also picked Venus. There's absolutely no reason for Venus to go home. So I guess if Venus gets voted out, we're going to go to a sudden death tiebreaker, essentially.
Yeah, and honestly, the only reason not to pick Venus here, in my opinion, is because you might be able to use her later in the game.
Maybe.
Because I think there's going to be a lot of big game hunting here going forward. And
Huntering.
And you know, Venus might now that she made it through these last couple of votes, she might be destined for, 0 vote finalist.
0 vote finalist. I can see it.
I just want to see how things are going to break when we actually get to a proper merge vote here. And I just don't think it'll break towards Venus getting voted out.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I think Venus is the closest thing to a sure thing that Ryan and I have this time around. I was not shocked to hear Ryan pick Venus.
Great minds think alike. And one great mind and one less great mind sometimes also think alike.
Yeah.
You could decide who's who.
Yeah, the listeners can decide who's who.
All right. This has been the Castaway Consultants.
Got nothing else for you.
Good night.